Welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Happy New Year. Hope you guys are all doing well. It's time for the match preview. I'm Andrew Musgrove, joined by John Gibson, and we're going to look ahead to the visit of Crystal Palace to St James's Park on Sunday. John, welcome back to the show. Did you see the new year out in style?
Yes, I enjoyed it, and I'm getting optimistic because it's a new year. You always get optimistic, and all the best to our listeners. And thanks for listening throughout 2025. And may it not just be a good year for you, but may it be a good year for NUFC, and may this steady our shattered and frayed nerves at times. We still have wonderful memories of 2025 because it includes our first win in a domestic cup for 70 years. And may we go onwards and upwards this year. And we've got a very good chance to start that way with 6 home games out the next 7.
Yes, indeed. The first being Crystal Palace. And as John said there, I just want to offer gratitude for sticking with us through 2025, a record year for the Everything is Black and White podcast. We saw growth of 9%, which is absolutely huge in this industry. And, our success is really down to you guys for being a committed and loyal audience. So it's not lost on us the privilege that we have to bring you our opinions, analysis of covering Newcastle United. And once again, we just want to say thank you very, very much. And stick with us because, this week alone, there's going to be loads of episodes, let alone the rest of 2026. So strap in and enjoy the content coming your way. We're going to talk now about the visit of Crystal Palace, a side who start the season pretty well. They've got a manager highly thought of. But in the last month or so, their form has dropped off. They haven't won in 6 in all competitions. You've got to go back to the 7th of December, I think it is, for the last win in the Premier League, which was against Fulham. John, if we were facing Crystal Palace a month ago, 6 weeks ago, our viewpoint on them probably would be a lot different to what it is now.
Yeah, I think without a shadow of doubt, we're catching them at the right time. They may feel they're catching us at the right time, but we certainly feel we're catching them at the right time. They've tapered off. We were the great imposters of last season, the two of us, weren't they? We won our first domestic trophy in 70 years. They won their first major trophy ever in the club's history when they won the FA Cup. We qualified for the Champions League. They went into Europe for the first time ever. It was a good. We beat Liverpool in the final, Arsenal in the semis. They beat Man City in the final. We're both cut down elite sides. The difficulty we both found, Andrew, was following that up. Now, you can understand Palace finding that difficult. They did follow it up with a wonderful Community Shield win against Liverpool. But you can imagine that it's been a difficult season for them, really, because they are a selling club and we are supposedly a buying club. They've lost all their top stars, and I suggest they'll lose 2 more in the summer. Glasner, the manager, and Gay, England centre-half. They'll lose them in the summer. So they are a selling club and they've done exceptionally well. We aren't a selling club and therefore shouldn't quite find ourselves in the tough situation we're in compared with them. But it is a good match for us to kick off 2026. And a real opportunity, having at last won away, far from perfect, but we very rarely see perfect these days, but it was an away win. And that is crucial because it was only our second in the Premier League this season. 3-1 to Burnley. We needed those points. We daren't think of what it would have been like if we didn't get them. We can't kid ourselves that all is well after that performance and that it's now all on the sunny side of the street. But it was a step in the right direction, and a step in the other direction would have been frightening.
Well, I want to ask you just briefly about the Burnley game. Like you say, the win was the most important thing, John, but there was a spell in that second half where Burnley were on top, and it split the fan base slightly. Some were concerned and worried about what they saw in that little spell Burnley had. Others have just focused on the fact it's a win, and the win is the most important thing. Eddie Howe was asked about this, I suppose, spell in his press conference ahead of the Palace game. And he was asked whether it was an onslaught by Burnley. And he's reacted a little bit spikily, shall we say. He said, an onslaught against us. Have you seen the stats on the game? You must have watched a different game then. There was no onslaught. Yes, we had moments offensively, but we had moments the other way. I'd never describe it as that. If it was an onslaught, I'd give you my opinion and say it was. John, do you think there's been an overreaction to that brief spell Burnley had in that game?
No, I don't. I think it's exactly you were talking before. I think it's exactly what we said it was. It was all about 3 points, and we got the 3 points, but they weren't pretty and they weren't convincing because we got off to a sensational start. You had two up in 7 minutes or something against a very, very poor side who hadn't won for yonks. And it should have been easy. It wasn't easy, but we play in spells now, don't we? It's quite incredible. We played with a very good first half against Chelsea and then fell off. We played at Manchester United and had a very good second half, but couldn't score. And then we had a very good first quarter of an hour against Palace when we went, against Burnley when we went 2-up. We play in patches. We don't play in 90 minutes for the moment. And of course, that's got to be concerned. When a team like Burnley can go through your midfield and get onto your back four as regularly as they did in the second half, when we are a Champions League side and they're fighting a fight against relegation, which they will lose without a shadow of doubt, then it's got to be a reaction. And the fact that Eddie got spiky is a little bit understandable because what he's doing is under pressure and he's feeling the pressure and he's reacting to that pressure. And it's slightly ruffling what is normally very smooth feathers. And I can see where that's coming from. But yes, facts are facts. But as we said prior to the Burnley game, it's all about the result. But you can't sort of come out and it wasn't a typical 3-1. 3-1 indicates that you won in a canter, doesn't it? And we certainly didn't win the canter. I mean, the clinching goal was about the 95th minute or something. Bruno, and thanks to Dubrovka, who's credited with an assist. So thanks for helping your old club, my friend. But no, it wasn't convincing, but it was necessary, and that's the main thing.
And a perfect platform to build on now with Crystal Palace coming to St James's Park, as we've said, not in the best of form. However, they are quite good on the road in the Premier League. They've won 5 games on the road, drawn 1 and lost 3. So even though they are going through a bit of a sticky patch themselves, you can't underestimate this Palace side. Great manager, some really talented players. Mateta, for example, it's going to be a big battle with him and Malik Chow and Fabian Schär. But on Newcastle United's defence, they're going to welcome back, we think, some big hitters, at least to the bench on Sunday. Tina Livramento looks like it'll be involved. Kieran Trippier as well could be back, and Sven Botman isn't too far away either. I mean, just to have those names, even if they're not even in the matchday squad, John, just to have them involved in first team training, that's going to be a huge boost ahead of Sunday.
Oh, without a shadow of doubt. I mean, we've been so stretched at the back, it's ridiculous. And yes, I would, if there is a starter out of those 3, you would probably think it would be Livramento if he was fit enough, because we haven't got a right back as magnificently as Miley has done. Botman is supposed to be going to be there or thereabouts, but I wouldn't expect them to start in the team with his injury record. I would expect him to be on the bench. But when you look on the bench, I mean, Hall got a knock against Burnley, and young Murphy was having to warm up, and we were looking at the situation where our 2 fullbacks could easily have been Miley and Murphy. And that shows how stretched you are, because neither are really out-and-out fullbacks. Murphy's more of a centre-half. So, yes, it's wonderful to have them back, or very, very close to being back. And we need that squad deepened, especially at the back.
Indeed. And you got your wish as well against Burnley that Nick Pope would be back between the sticks. Some crucial saves that he had to make, not an onslaught, by the way, but some crucial saves that he had to make against Burnley. But the same old issues with his kicking and what have you. But I guess, we've just got to put up with that, given that he is the better goalkeeper in terms of shot stopping than Aaron Ramsdale.
Yes, I mean, you've got to go with what you've got. You haven't got an option. you've got either Ramsdale or Pope, and Pope is by far the better shot stopper, and he proved that again against Burnley. And I was pushing for him to be back, and I'm very delighted he is back. I feel more confident on shot stopping. And while you want your keeper to be good with his feet these days, let's not lose sight of the fact that a goalkeeper's first job is to stop shots, and he is good at that. So that is a big plus. It was a big plus to get Wissa back and starting because, well, I was looking a little bit at the old Newcastle, not in terms of their performance, I hasten to add, but in terms of format, in the way they can play, because Wissa played as a traditional centre forward and the way we want centre forwards to play. And watching him play, Andrew, and he's nowhere near match fit yet, so I'm not going overboard, but he shows us everything Walter Marder doesn't do, doesn't he? Without being too cruel on the big man, do you ever see him go beyond? Does he live in the 6-yard box like Visa is always wanting to do, etc., etc.? And that is essential to a centre forward. So, it reminded us of what traditional centre forwards at Newcastle normally do, seeing Visa back in there.
Certainly did, and that's why I would start him on Sunday against Crystal Palace. Being fit, of course, but if he is, then he gets the nod for me ahead of Valdemar.
Oh, yes, because Valdemar he wants to be a good player. He's anxious to be a good player. He's got a good attitude and he's got good feet, but he doesn't live in the penalty area. He doesn't live in the penalty area. And that's where centre forwards live. All great centre forwards, Supermac, lived there. He would attack from deep with his pace, but he lived to be around the penalty area. So did Shearer. So did Warjacki. If you're a traditional number 9, you've got to live in the penalty area. Valdemar isn't keen on living in the penalty area. And therefore, if he starts against Palace, because the manager doesn't think we can start 2 games in 4 or 5 days, then I will feel a little depressed and a little worried, because outside of the first half against Chelsea, when Valdemar was excellent and almost unrecognisable from the way he normally plays. I mean, he was closing down on the press and he was finishing inside the box. I thought, blimey, what's next here? It's not the one we quite know. But I mean, Wissa does play it the way we would want it to be played. And once Wissa's fit, he will nail on that number 9 shot. The problem then for Eddie is how he uses Valdemar. Does he use him just off the bench to go on in the last 20 minutes in place of Wissa? Or when he's a club record buy, by the way? Not, your benchman, your regular benchman's not normally being paid a club record fee for. So there's a decision to be made there in the future, but that's the future. For the moment, if Wissa was able to do it, it would go without saying that he would start against Palace.
Yeah, and then on to the wings, John, because obviously they feed the man up top, and Anthony Gordon. The criticism of him, I think, is just, and it hasn't gone away. I know Eddie Howe was complimentary of him a few games back. I think it was against Manchester United, where he said he was arguably the best player on the pitch, and not everyone agreed. I thought against Burnley, just half-hearted. Yes, he gets the ball in the box for Joelinton's goal, but really there was nothing else to write home about. And again, if I'm making these decisions, I would be dropping Anthony Gordon to the bench. I would be sticking Harvey Barnes out on the left, because every time he sticks him out on the right, I think it becomes ineffective. And Jacob Murphy, who again, I thought he didn't look his old self against Burnley. He looked kind of 2 or 3 yards off the pace, but there's no one else to play on the right because Alanga doesn't look like he's going to be back involved. So he would start anyway. But I think the big call is out on the left. And for me, I think Anthony Gordon, as I said a few games ago, he just needs to be sent a message. He needs to know that he's not untouchable in that position, that if he does drop out, it's not just because of fitness or because of rotation to keep people fresh. It's a move which is essentially him being dropped because he's not being good enough. And I think that's the only way he's going to react and kind of push back and get back to that player that he thinks he is and that we know he can be. But so far this season, we've only really seen in the Champions League in the early parts of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I am very, very concerned for different reasons, but I'm very concerned about the body language of both Gordon and Tonali. I mean, I looked at the body language of Isak in the second half of last season after Wembley, and I was very concerned about it. And I was right to be concerned about it because he was obviously thinking of getting away. And he made that abundantly clear and forced that to happen. Now, I'm not saying necessarily that these two guys are doing it for the same reason, but what I'm saying is that however much you run about, however much you try or you don't, however much your form is with you or it isn't with you, your body language is the first thing that tells you something's wrong with a player. That's what gives it away, because players can't camouflage body language. Isak was not right. Gordon is not right. His mind is not right. He's not the bouncy guy. He's not the chirpy scouser. He's not the smile on the face. He's not tracking back and making tackles and roaring the crowd on when he blocks it and it goes out for a throw-in like Bruno does, etc., etc. Now, possibly for different reasons, I am concerned about Tonali as well. His body language tells me he's not a happy bunny. Why he's not happy is a different kettle of fish. Is it because he's had injuries? Is it because he's just shattered mentally as well as physically? Whatever it is, he is not happy. Gordon is not happy. Their body language is screaming out, this is not... Tonali, when he came back after his 10 months out and he was va-va-voom and he was playing right back, outside left, outside right, defensive midfield, attacking midfield. He was playing everywhere bar goal. Now, he just looks shattered and he looks as if his shoulders are drooping. And for me, the body language of Tonali and Gordon, two blue chip players at Newcastle United, two current internationals at Newcastle United, their body language tells me that for whatever reason, they're both mentally not with it at the moment. In Tonali's case, it might just be a matter of being shattered, a matter of having problems, having been injured, having been ill, etc., etc. With Gordon, you suspect it's a bit more. But I tell you what, bottom line, both are not the happy bunnies that I once saw.
So is the solution to keep them in the side and hope that it clicks for them against Palace, or is the solution to take them out and put an arm around the shoulder and hope that kind of approach snaps them back into place?
The approach is that everybody in the side has got to be in on merit. And I don't think you should keep Gordon in the hope it goes well. I think you should play Barnes as you suggested. And if we got a fullback fit for Sunday, and that fullback would probably be Livramento. If Livramento could play right back, I would drop Tonali and play Miley in the middle of the park, because Miley deserves to be in this team. If Miley's got to play right back, it's a different matter with Tonali, because Ramsey and Willock, for me, haven't justified being in the starting lineup at all. So it would be a different matter if Miley wasn't available to play. But if Miley was available, Joe Linton did enough in the match for me to stay in the team. Did enough at Turf Moor to stay in the team. He was possibly our best outfield player. So he's done enough to stay in the team. The captain's going to stay in the team, so it's Tonali. He stays in the team if you haven't got Miley for midfield. If you've got Livramento, Miley plays midfield. Now, before anybody jumps on the bandwagon and says what a wonderful player Tonali is now, I have spent time and again with you on this podcast saying what a wonderful player Tonali is, what a privilege it is to watch him, what a Rolls Royce he'd be, what a wonderful guy he has with his attitude, having had these 10 months out and having not known the language, etc., etc. I think he is absolutely top notch. Unfortunately, at the moment, he isn't, and he hasn't been for quite a little while. And it may be a totally different situation to Gordon. It may not. Who knows? Only Tonali and Gordon knows, although Howe's paid to know by seeing him every day on the pitch and making tough decisions. If not talking about it publicly, certainly privately making tough decisions. But I'm concerned about both. But I'm more concerned about Tonali. because he is a good guy that's been crucial to us, etc., etc. And I worry about what is wrong with Sandro. What is wrong with Anthony Gordon is he needs a kick up the backside.
Certainly so, and maybe being dropped from the starting 11 on Sunday will hand them that. Just a reminder, ladies and gents, that this episode is sponsored by fpro.com, the training mat you guys need to help enhance the skills of any budding footballers in the household. And we have 60% off your fpro.com training mat. Click the link in the podcast description box or head over to fpro.com/EIBW20 take advantage of this very special offer. It's a mat that can fit into pretty much any space in the household, even works outdoors, and it's built around training drills that have been built by UEFA coaches. So do check that out. And a big thanks to NordVPN as well. If you've got any new electronic devices for Christmas, then you're going to want NordVPN on them to help keep you protected from the potential hackers and scammers out there. If you're browsing on public Wi-Fi, then NordVPN is what you need to keep yourself safe. Again, we've got a very discounted and exclusive offer for our listeners of the Everything is Black and White podcast. Click the link in the podcast description box to take advantage of that. John, you mentioned there about Lewis Miley and him starting in midfield. If Tino is fit enough to start at full back, and if not, then Miley stops at right back. That is the biggest compliment we can pay Lewis Miley, isn't it? That he has played himself into a position, and I never like using the term undroppable, but he's as close to being undroppable as I think you can be.
Yes, I mean, he has done magnificently, and I'm delighted we all saw the potential, we all knew what was there, we all knew that he was going to have to take it and be patient, and it wasn't going to come quickly, but he's grown into a man, and what a man, 6'4", and glides around the pitch and can almost play in any position. And if he were dropped, and I smile when managers use the word rested. If you're not picked and you're available to be picked, you're dropped in my book. It might be a harsh word, but it's true because that's the way of life. And this guy can't be dropped at the moment. And he's not undroppable long term, but right now he is, because if you had to put on current form a list from 1 to 11 of who was playing well for Newcastle, Miley would be in the top 3 at this given moment. So you can't leave him out. It's whether he plays right back or whether he plays as the anchor in midfield against Palace I'm talking about. He's got to be in the Palace game because he deserves to be in the Palace game. He deserves to be in the Palace game a lot more than Gordon deserves to be in the Palace game, or Shaw, or you can go through it, or Tonali, if I may say so, or Voldemort, or Murphy. He deserves to be in the team ahead of those. Forgetting the position, he deserves to be on the team sheet. He has been magnificent, and we must make certain in the long-term future that he is not another Elliot Anderson. He is not a local lad sold because he's 100% profit. Sorry, that's one of the biggest clangers Newcastle made, was selling Elliot Anderson. I know they were under pressure. They should have headed off the pressure so they weren't under that pressure, or so they could sell someone else instead of Elliot Anderson. It's easy to say that with hindsight, but I was a big supporter of him, knowing Grandad Jeff Allen and knowing the family and knowing the potential of the guy. I was so against that. Please don't let that happen with Lewis Miley. Encourage him, make him see that there is a road into the first team regularly, not just standing, not that he's just a plug to be put in the top of the bath to let some more in when it's necessary, but that he's a vital part of Newcastle United. And yes, we've paid him a huge compliment, both of us, and he deserves every bit of it.
Yep, certainly so. How important, John, is it that Newcastle United pick up the 3 points on Sunday, given that January is filled with home games? You know, you really want to start this run of clashes with the right result.
Oh, I mean, 6 of the next 7 are at home, and that means only 1 away game. And where's it? Wolves, who were last tight, they haven't won this season. Wolves haven't won a match this season. They're bottom of the league. They could be setting a record for the fewest points ever totted up in a season. I think in a Premier League season, I think it was Derby County that had that originally. Sunderland weren't far off that at one time. So, I mean, you should go there and win. It's absolutely crucial, but it's no good having 6 games out of 7 at home over all competitions, all 4 competitions. It's not just in the Premier League, but it's no good having 6 at 7 at home and saying how good we are at home and saying we've relieved some of the pressure by winning away at long last at Burnley. If on our very first home game of the new year at the start of this wonderful run, we don't win. I'm not talking about getting beat. I'm talking about not winning. We've got to win this one to really have the platform and go on with Leeds and the Cups and everything else, to go on to really build up a head of steam, because this is our last chance to build up a head of steam that allows us to finish the season with a little bit of a swagger. What I'm looking for is a new Newcastle in the old swagger, a new Newcastle from what we've had this season and the old swagger from what we had last season when we went to Wembley and won.
And look, we've spoken about how there are so many positives to take into this new year. And although sometimes it might feel a little bit doom and gloom, especially in the Premier League, and Newcastle at the moment sits 13th, but 1 win and you can shoot right up the table. It's so close. And that's the other important reason as well, that they make the most of these home games. They continue that great winning form at home, Chelsea aside with that draw, and continue to build, because now is the time before their teams start picking up form. I've got some stats for you, John, just before I get your score prediction, because I know you're a fan of stats. So Newcastle have lost just 1 of the last 8 Premier League games against Crystal Palace, winning 3, drawing 4. Crystal Palace have failed to score in any of the last 4 Premier League away games against Newcastle United, losing the last 2 by a score collectively of 9-0. And this is the one, John, which I think you'll be most impressed with. Newcastle have won their last 2 Premier League home games against Crystal Palace by 4-0 and then 5-0 scorelines. They last scored 4+ goals in 3 consecutive home league games against an opponent versus Luton between 1947 and 1956. There you go.
Well, I love those facts and figures because they're all in Newcastle United's favour. And I think they don't mean a jot when we kick off at 3 o'clock on Sunday, because it won't have anything to do with how the game goes. What it'll have to do with how the game goes, what Newcastle United do, more than what Crystal Palace do. And I'll go back to what I said in the previous podcast we did, Andrew, before Burnley, and Burnley hasn't changed it. Let's be a bit inventive. If not in the team selection, let's be a bit inventive with our subs. Let everything not be like for like. Let's mix it up a little bit. Let's keep people thinking. Let's not be predictable. Let's not be in a straitjacket. Let's be a bit viable and a bit bouncy and a bit inventive, if we like. Let's add that to the pot, because if we don't, the 6 games out of 7 won't just be an automatic run of win.
Well, interestingly, before I get your result prediction, you did say for the preview for the Burnley game, we have to do something different. You actually said, Eddie, please do something different, and he didn't do. You still say he needs to, even though obviously he would maybe argue, well, actually, I stuck with my formation, stuck with me personnel, did the like for like, and we came out with 3 points.
Yeah, we did, but that's a law of averages, and you've got to remember who we played. We're playing Burnley, for goodness sake. Now, I'm not suggesting any team in the Premier League rolls over and lets you tickle their tummy, but it would be stupid to say that there's not easier games and tougher games. Like away to Manchester City and Arsenal is a bit tougher than away to Burnley and Wolves, which is the 2 we're involved in with away games at the moment. There are easier games. Would we have got away with that against Burnley if it was against Manchester City? If it was against Arsenal, would we have beaten them 3-1 with exactly the same sort of display? I very much doubt it. And I'm not necessarily having got away with it against Burnley, and I'm not necessarily thinking it's going to go Wissa Voltemade in a double header from the kickoff against Palace. But let us, if we are in need of team changes during the game, if they're not because of injury, but they are tactical, could we mix it about a bit instead of always being like for like? You know, an outside right for an outside right, an outside left for an outside left, a centre midfielder for a centre midfielder. Can we change it about? If we need a little bit of inspiration, can we throw a ringer in and make them think about, oh, what do we do now? Oh, crikey, we're getting overrun here in midfield. Or all of a sudden, the lone striker's got support. I think there's a need. Just because you stuck with what you stuck for and got a result doesn't mean now we don't need any inventiveness for the rest of the season. Let's just plough on the way we've ploughed on. If we do that, the better sides we are due to meet, and we're due to meet Manchester City up here, we're due to meet in the 7 games Aston Villa up here, you know, they're different ball games. You've got to have your thinking cap on against sides like that. And so I'm just urging Eddie, rather than having a go there, I'm urging Eddie, look, let's be a little bit brave. Let's not be belt and braces all the time, because what's belt and braces got we in the Premier League this season? Let's be a little bit more brave about it. And the time to start being brave is when you make your tactical changes, because that is voluntary changes. And let's do something different. Because if they're necessary, we're not 5-0 up. If they're necessary, it's because it's a tight game and we might just want to throw a spanner in the works.
Well, come on then. How's it going to go on Sunday?
Oh, we're going to win. For several reasons. One of them being we're at home. And that is hugely different to us being away. 2 is that if we'd got Crystal Palace at home early in the season, just after they'd won the FA Cup last season, just after they'd beaten Liverpool in the Community Shield final, when they were going va-va-voom against all odds, they would have been difficult. But they've hit the level as they were bound to. You can't sell all your top players. And yes, they've got 1 or 2 good players left, no question. But they're on thin ice. They're limping into January's transfer window with Glasner desperate to get people in, to give them a second wind for the second half of the season. So we're meeting them at exactly the right time. And I think we'll win because we've got 3 points against Burnley, because we're at home, because the crowd will be very much with us, as they always are, but with us because we've won away, and therefore we've got a little bit of room about us from the off. We have got more potential in the squad than they have, because their squad is so limited. And I mean, I want to take a 2-0 scoreline, and it's not just because we win, because I could take any score. But rather than 2-1, I would like it to be 2-0 and get a clean sheet, which we haven't had for 12 games or whatever it is. So let's get a little boost of a clean sheet as well. So while I'm looking for Newcastle to win, and I think they will win, and it could easily be 2-1, let's make it 2-0 and try to get a clean sheet, because that would be a help and another little tiny step forward as well.
It would be, and I'm going to back you on that as well. I think it'll be a win for Newcastle United. I think it'll be quite scrappy. You've got 2 teams who are in need of a win. 2 managers who could do with a win as well. Obviously, Eddie wants to build on that 3-1 victory over Burnley, and they need to as well, because we always say, John, it's all about momentum, and that's what Newcastle United need going into a really crucial period of the season, a defining period of the season. So a win against Crystal Palace would set them down the right path. Thank you, John, as always, for coming on and providing the match preview. And we'll see you in a few days' time ahead of that game against Leeds United, another one at St James's Park. But for now, the attention is all on Crystal Palace. Do enjoy the game if you're lucky enough to be going. Let us know in the comments about anything that we've discussed today. I mean, John, we'll see you next week.